Hi there, Finance2205, personal finance students. This 2013 fall semester, can you believe that we are already in week number 6? It's just is mind-boggling to me. This semester is going by so quickly, and we are already entering October. Today is October the 2nd. Consequently, we're in week number 6. It's just amazing to me. Soon it'll start to get a little chilly outside, and I know that you have this marked on your calendar, fall break, right? Those 2 important days of fall break. All right, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit, and the first thing I want us to look at is our schedule. Remember that you have access to this in pause, and I wanted to look at it with you. If you cannot see my screen really well, that's okay. Just pull up your schedule from our course management system, which is called Pause, and here we are, week number 6. This is the second page. It started on Tuesday, October the 1st, and you'll see where you should be, what you should be working on, and I think you guys are keeping pace very well. When I look at how you're working on the quizzes, when I look at students who are participating still and active in the discussion board, you're on track. You're keeping up in a timely manner. That's a good thing. Okay, now I want you to look ahead a little bit. Come over here to this page, if you can see where I'm highlighting here, to week number 7. You'll see that on your schedule. And this is the week before fall break. Like I said, you probably have stars all over that day, right? And what I want you to see is that we're going towards test number 1, which is going to cover chapters 1 through 6. If you go to pause to the content area, scroll down to test number 1, you're going to see some instructions there. There is a password on the test. That's going to be in those instructions. It'll tell you how many questions, the time limit. You will have exactly 1 attempt. We'll talk about this again later, but as you're looking ahead, as you're making your plans, make sure that you look ahead at that first test. You need to do well on it, because also as you look ahead, after fall break that week is actually week number 8, you may want to think about getting a jump start on those chapters over fall break. Now that's up to you, but be aware that you have 2 chapters to cover when you return. That's just the only way we can fit this content into the course as we need to. So keep an eye out that you've got a little hill coming up. You may say, "Woo, we're in October, downhill, downhill. Whoops, fall break. Whoops." Got a test though, right? I've got a test the 18th through the 22nd. I've got 2 chapters when I come back. So, we went down, now we're coming back up, right? So keep that on your radar. I just want to make sure you're up to speed on that. Okay, another important thing. Let's talk about the discussion board. Each week, this is our 3rd discussion, and you're getting a feel for what I want, and I understand that. The very first chapter, I graded you very leniently, told you that, asked you to make some changes. Didn't see a lot of those changes in chapter 2, and some of you paid the price for that. So you got to read that feedback, but I did see, that feedback from chapter 2, I started to see it in chapter 3. That being said, there are still some things that we need to work on. You're going to be successful because you're listening to this video and you're going to incorporate what I tell you. So these are like the secrets to success, okay? And you can do it. The question, and let me rephrase that, the questions that we were to address: factors contributing to unsuccessful budgeting, and then the most forgotten question: how can these situations be avoided? Okay, this is what you tended to do. You looked at the first part, you saw the word factors, you flipped through that book, you looked for a couple factors, threw them out there, done. No, not done. Here's the key to success. See here? I'm telling you, this is the tips and tricks. Just listen to what I'm telling you, incorporate it into your work, and you're gonna see your grade go up, 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 up. That's what we want. Notice I've got in red, in highlight, bold, italicize, underline, the word demonstrate. And I think we're struggling perhaps with that word. To demonstrate your knowledge, you have to assume that I have never ever read or been to a personal finance class. Right? In the discussion board, and let me emphasize that word discussion, You are coming in to talk to me. We're going to discuss personal finance. So pretend I'm your friend, and I say, man, you know what? I am unsuccessful in my budgeting. I'm broke all the time. I end up going into debt all the time. What do you think could be causing it? Now, I probably may not ask you that, but maybe you're sitting there thinking, you know what? You use those credit cards too readily. What are some of the things that your textbook said? The credit cards, you're too tempted by all the products that are out there, and you're too ready to buy them, right? You don't have a budget. Maybe you haven't put a budget. Aren't these some of the factors? Okay, that's the beginning of the discussion. But what is your friend going to ask you next? Help me. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to say, here's some money. Go and fix your problem. No, you're going to say, you know what you need to do? Tell me. Can't wait to hear it. Because what you're going to do is tell me how I can avoid those situations. By and large, folks, you did not answer this question. When I present choices to you and say pick one, you have to pick one. If I ask you 2 questions, you have to answer both questions. If I ask you 5 questions, you have to answer all 5. I don't ask you 5 questions. I ask you 2. This is the equivalent of saying explain. You are excited for that second question because when you just list factors, it does not give you the opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge. That is what this second question is pulling out of you. And by and large, it was ignored. So don't do that in the future. You're going to do that. You're going to demonstrate your knowledge. We're going to talk more about that. Now, I have to once again talk about spelling and grammar because I think we're fighting on this. Let's not fight. I am not picking at you, okay? This is not about me going poke, 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 spell things correctly and use the Queen's English. That's not what I'm saying, okay? What I want you to do is to make sure that you are holding yourself accountable for clear communication. In other words, if you are failing to put a period at the end of the sentence, you write a fragment. When you should have put a comma, you put a period and you end the sentence. The spelling is so outrageous that I cannot follow, and that is what's happening. Here's how I read. This is going to benefit you to understand how I read your work. I don't have any idea. I don't know what's in your mind, right? And so you have all these ideas and all these thoughts in your mind. You're starting to write. And so I start to read. Da-da-da-da-da. Now, there's a misspelled word. Oh, she must have meant or he must have meant this. Okay, let me start over. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Second error. Oh, the sentence ends abruptly. This should not have been the end of the sentence. Or it should have been the end of a sentence, but instead it's running into the next sentence. What does she mean? What does he mean? What does she mean? What does he mean? Let me start over. And so I have to keep reading this. Now, here's what tends to start to happen. I realize that I am filling in the blanks for you. You didn't say this. You didn't understand that. I'm assuming that you did. Oh, we need to put up the stop signs because you did not demonstrate your knowledge. Because if you didn't take the time, you didn't hold yourself accountable to spell it correctly, to say it correctly, then you didn't communicate to me. You lost me. Think how upset you get with teachers who do not communicate clearly to you. Maybe you have an employer, a boss who you feel does not communicate to you clearly. Well, you have to hold yourself responsible for that. I have never taken personal finance. I have never read that book. I'm asking you about these factors. I need you to explain it to me. And I need to make sure as you're explaining these concepts that I can follow. And so that spelling and grammar, folks, is so important. And I've cautioned many times. I've given this suggestion many times. Type it up in a word processor. Let that word processor spot the errors. When the word processor says something is wrong, fix it. That way you'll get a great grade. You won't lose points. And that's what, you communicate more clearly. You don't lose points. You get a good grade. Life is good, right? That's a great tip. And okay, so then just copy and paste it from the word processor into the discussion board. That's going to save you so many points. It'll take you 2 minutes to do it, right? Okay, final thought. You've got to really take the time to write well-developed thoughts. In 3, 4, 5 words, in one sentence, you are probably not, okay, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but the amount of time it would take you to edit the sentence that's going to really explain to me in one sentence would be so overwhelming. Go ahead and write 3 sentences, 4 sentences, 5 sentences, if that's what it takes to communicate to me the concept from the book. I don't think that you're going to take 30 pages from a chapter and express it in 3 words. I just don't see that that's going to happen in a way that convinces me that you understand those thoughts. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, let me be clear. I do not need a 30-page research paper. Don't write me 27 sentences. These are fairly brief questions. How can I avoid it? What are the factors? How can I avoid them? Right? But if you just say something like, you know what, you need a budget. I don't know what that means. How do I do that? How do I understand that what you're trying to communicate to me? So you are going to have to explain that, and that's not happening right now, and we need that to happen. Let me give you some examples. Here we go. Oh, here's a sad face. So notice that this is a bad example, okay? Now, I've written this in a word processor, and this starts to put the light on the issues that I'm seeing. Do you see all these squiggles? These little red and green and blue squiggles tell you something is wrong. Even if you disagree with the word processor, even if you know for sure what you're saying is grammatically correct or spelled correctly, you still need to investigate it, because there's something that is just a little bit difficult for the computer to understand, and it would probably be better if you just switch some words around to make it read more clearly. Okay, let me start. This is so easy. Let me tell you the benefit of doing this. See, okay, what's the problem here? You see the problem, right? To begin. There should be a space there. I don't even need to know that. If I right-click on that, see how it's telling me to begin? All I had to do is select it from the list. Let's look at a few other ones. Ooh, what happened here? This is a common problem. I just transposed some letters. Let me right-click on it. It says, I think, as toad. Now, I didn't mean as toad, as in toad. No, as noted. All I have to do is select it from the list, right? Self-discipline. You know, the question you end up having on that word is it hyphenated or is it not hyphenated? Your word processor is telling you that should be hyphenated. I don't even have to type it. I'm just going to let the word processor fix it. Okay? Now, you'll notice it's not going to fix all the mistakes, but it does help a lot, right? For example, ooh, just don't even get me started on this. Without this you, this is not how you spell the word you. When I say you and you and you and you and you and you and you, okay? Please do not do that. Okay, here's why. You're not texting me. We're not bestest buddies. We're not hanging out. Okay, you have got to take the time to write correctly, because you are a business professional, and that's how business professionals communicate. And when business professionals see this kind of slang, you may not like this. It's insulting. What it says is that you've just tried to talk to me as if I am so low that you can't take the time to write out 2 more letters. I don't think you mean that. I don't think you mean to be insulting. I don't want you to represent yourself that way. I want you to represent yourself as a strong business professional. You're going to be an expert in your field. You're going to go out there and you're going to make a positive impression. And using slang is not the way to do it. That's just not the way. Okay? So without this, you will not succeed in budget. This is text slang, isn't it? Listen, if you are talking to a family member or a really, really, really close friend that you don't work with, I tell you truthfully, I'm still hesitant to do that. I always want to be my best. I'm just going to tell you, for this class, you're going to lose points if you do that. It's a silly thing. I think it would only take you, in each one of these cases, there were 2 letters that you had to add. I would hate to lose 2 points over 2 letters. Wouldn't you? Okay. Take the time, spell that correctly. Look at that. Once I fix this, look at this word budgeting. It says at least it should be capitalized, right? After you end a sentence, you're supposed to capitalize the first letter of each word. That does mean you have to hold down the Shift key as you type that letter. Again, I would rather do that than lose some points, because this is just about communicating as a business professional, pulling yourself up to that level to really be colleagues in professionalism, in business environment, in the business environment. And this is how we do it. So I want you to be your best, folks. I want you to do that. It's just so important. Now, let's compare this posting. To begin, I would say that budgets is very difficult to manage. As noted in the textbook, that's a fragment. What does that mean? I would have to start over. To begin, I would say to you that budgets is not, budgets are. I'm surprised the word processor didn't catch that, but nevertheless, you know better because you can hear it as you reread your work. To begin, there ought to be a comma there. To begin, I would say to you that, and this is just unnecessary. To begin, budgets are very difficult to manage. Do you see how it takes time to edit it down to be very concise? Okay, I'm going to let you use a couple extra words, but I need you to explain clearly. Okay, as noted in the textbook, that should have been a comma because it was just a beginning to the sentence, right? As noted in the textbook, budgeting requires self-discipline. Without this, you will not succeed in the budget. Now, what did that person just tell me? Budgets are difficult. Duh. But they talked about budgets in the textbook, self-discipline. What kind of self-discipline? I mean, maybe I'm an athlete and I am bankrupt. I have self-discipline. What are you talking about? If I'm bankrupt, then does my self-discipline apply to what? Am I spending too much? You see what I'm saying? Tell me more. I'm anxious to know. But instead, all you said is, this is me, so all I said was, you needed to succeed. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. Let's go back. Did you demonstrate your knowledge? Does that posting demonstrate? Did you just talk to your friend about factors and then how these can be avoided? Let me give you a good example. To begin, budgets are difficult to manage. As noted in the textbook, budgeting requires self-discipline. Who says? The textbook says. This is where they say. I have friends who set a budget but then ignore the budget when they really wanted an item. You know what this is? This is my personal experience. Who says? The author of the textbook says, and I support with this example. I have friends who set a budget but then ignore the budget when they really wanted an item. For example, my best friend was saving money for Christmas, and she decided to save $10 each week. Unfortunately, she saw a pair of shoes that she wanted, and she decided to spend all the money she had saved to buy the shoes. Of course, the real problem is that she went shoe shopping, because what did the textbook tell us about temptations? She should have avoided the temptation. There, we say it right there. And to buy the shoes, she did not have the self-discipline to stick to her budget. I'm talking about budgets. I give a reference to the textbook, I give an example, and I explain that application. This, folks, is a really strong posting. Now, you may say, but you're the teacher. Of course it is, but I'm giving you a good example. And hopefully you can see the difference between what I just read in this. Let's compare them side by side. To begin, I would say to you that budgets are very difficult to manage. As noted in the textbook, budgeting requires self-discipline. Without this, you will not succeed in your budget. Self-discipline is needed. Without it, you won't succeed. Whatever, right? Good example. This is my point, right? This is my opinion. Here's what the textbook says to support my opinion. Here's my experience that influenced even further my decision. Let's do another one. Let's do another one. You'll start to see. Okay. Here's the, let me put this next one onto the next page. Here's another bad example. Because, first of all, what was the question? It was the factors, but what was the rest of the question? How do I avoid these problems? Plus, I've got a spelling error in here, right? Budgets are difficult. Here's why. Done. Okay, let me tell you the can of worms you've opened up when you list. I need to understand, who said? The textbook. Where? Where in the textbook? Where did they say this? for each one of these items that you've brought to light. And I need to know what you feel your understanding is. I need you to demonstrate your understanding of each one of those issues. So by listing all these things out, first of all, you've opened Pandora's box and said, blah, 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 here's all these factors, but you've offered me no explanation. Therefore, you don't know. You have not demonstrated to me that you know. Therefore, you do not. You see the problem. Do you start to see the problem? Let me continue. Let me clean this one up. If I was to take this posting and write it in a good way, to begin, budgets are difficult to manage. As noted in the textbook, budgeting requires self-discipline. Right? There's self-discipline. Let's go back. Here's the reference. I have friends who have set a budget but then ignored the budget because they really wanted an item. Kind of brief, but you know, you got more points to make, so we'll see. Budgets are difficult because people lack self-discipline, have many expenses, low wages, charge to credit cards. Look at all these references. Who says low wages? Who says credit cards? Who says many temptations? To explain, let me address each of these points, because this in and of itself is not enough. You have not demonstrated to me anything other than that you've gone to some book, you've flipped open a page, and you've said, right? That's all you're demonstrating. I don't understand what you understand. Demonstrate it to me. So let me address those points. Okay, so here we go. Here's an example of how you would explain. I believe that people, now this is just what I posted a minute ago in that example. Now I need to go on to my second point, which is that people have many expenses. Also, I believe that people are unsuccessful with budgeting because of low wages. For example, fast food workers recently attempted to conduct a nationwide strike to increase hourly wages because these jobs are full-time and lifelong jobs that do not provide the wages for workers to live. Okay, here's my point. I need to explain each one of these points that I've brought up. And that's going to, you say, well, that's too much. It is too much. I don't know why you opened that Pandora's box, so don't do that. Okay, here's what you want. If you open a door, you have to walk through it. So don't, you know, I'm not telling you not to tell me anything, but even this, you would agree, is not a comprehensive list. So wherever you draw that line, you need to explain to me what you understand. Now, you can raise more than one point. You can list more than one factor because some of them go very well together. I have many expenses and I have low wages. Those two things might really support each other in your explanation. But if you start to list items to me, I look to you to demonstrate and explain to me what's going on. So I've been a little animated as I've discussed. I hope I've not offended you because that's not my goal. I want you to get this passion for what it takes to really write and express yourself in a well-supported, well-justified way. Let me conclude with this. On your job, you will be asked by your boss as a business professional, what do you think about A, B, C, or D? Now, you have learned things throughout your college career in this class, in your history, English, arts, in all these classes that have enhanced your understanding, that give you great support for your opinion. So when you say to your boss, I think this, support yourself by saying, because I read this, I did this, and I did that. You all took a great step forward on this discussion board posting and doing exactly that. Now you need to elaborate, because if I'm your boss and you say, I think we should paint the office yellow. Here's why. I've read studies that say that people feel more relaxed and happy when the office is painted yellow. So your boss says, what do you mean by yellow? Do you mean sunny yellow? Do you mean egg yolk yellow? Do you mean off-white yellow? You see how it opens up for more discussion? So you're going to explain. You're going to always answer the second part of that question. How can I do it? How can it be avoided? You're going to demonstrate what you mean and kind of more fully explain. You've got to take the time to really develop those thoughts. Now, I've taken quite a bit of time to explain that point to you, but it does not mean that you have to write an essay. It does mean that probably one sentence, 3 words, even 10 sentences with a lot of improper spelling and grammar are not going to do that job. So I look to you to work on that as you go into chapter 4 and 5 and 6 discussions. You're going to continue to do your references, and you're going to add this next piece where you bump it up to the next level and you start to explain your thoughts and really develop them. I would not ask this if I didn't think you could do it. Every student who has posted has this capability, and as a class, we're going to lift each other up and we're going to work towards that direction. And I know you can do it. So I'm going to be talking to you. Keep those tests and those future chapters on your mind. You are doing good. If it starts to get tough a little bit, just remember you got a little bit of fall break, but then you got up a hill, but you can do it. You can do it. Give yourself the time to invest and to immerse yourself into the knowledge. Thanks so much. We'll be talking to you soon. I can